Developing corporate behavior. Corporate behavior is an important aspect of any business. The right behavior can result in your company skyrocketing with effective productivity and a positive reputation. Poor behavior can cause a company's productivity and reputation to plummet. There are many ways to influence corporate behavior change, but the first step is to understand what behavior is. How can you change behavior if you don't know what it is? Research has consistently demonstrated that when clear goals are associated with learning, it occurs more easily and rapidly. With that in mind, let's review our goals for today. At the end of this workshop, participants should be able to understand what behavior is, understand the benefits of corporate behavior, know what type of behaviors you want to implement in your company, know how to implement corporate behaviors, know how to maintain corporate behaviors.
Behavior is what a man does, not what he thinks, feels, or believes. Emily Dickinson.
In life and business, behavior affects everything. Great corporate behavior can open the door to creating happy customers and bring in new customers. What exactly is behavior? In this section, we will discuss what behavior is and what facilitates behavior. By the end of this journey, you should have a good understanding of what great corporate behavior is and how to promote it in your company. To understand how to influence the behavior of a company, you have to understand what behavior is and the science behind it. Behavior is defined as the way a person acts or behaves, anything that an organism does involving action and response to stimulation. Corporate behavior relates to the structure a company has provided for itself and employees in order to improve the company's effectiveness. A behavior can be developed through three major components: psychology, sociology, and anthropology. Understanding psychology is an important step in understanding how to change your corporate behavior. Basically, psychology is the study of the human mind with a major focus on behavior. With the use of psychology, it is possible to sometimes change a person's behavior. Psychology mostly deals with emotions, personality, and perception. Psychology is like an onion. It has many layers. There are various fields in psychology, many of which could be applied to the corporate setting. In a corporate setting, psychology would help with training, learning, engagement, motivation, job satisfaction, decision-making, leadership, stress. Sociology is the study of a society, social relationships, and institutions. Sociologists study a group or an organization and how the people within these groups relate and interact with one another. Social psychology mixes concepts from psychology and sociology that focus on the influences people have on one another. Sociology is an important aspect of behavior because it shows us how we relate to each other as a group. Here are some ways sociology affects people: attitude, group processes, group decision-making, communication. Anthropology is the study of the human race and its cultures. This relates to cultures such as ancient tribes and past societies. The culture that we are raised in affects the way we act as adults. Understanding different cultures and traditions helps make the workplace a stronger unit. Without this understanding, we are alienating those employees who may be from a different background. What does anthropology include? Comparative values, comparative attitudes, cultural analysis, cross-cultural analysis. Now let's look at a practical illustration. Angelica was raised in a strict household. Because of her cultural background, it was considered taboo to show a lot of emotions. She was always taught to be strong and hide what she was feeling inside. Her mother raised her the same way she had been raised, the same way her grandmother had been raised, and so forth. Angelica noticed that the way she was raised had a negative effect on her life. She was unable to express simple emotions because she had always been conditioned not to. Her coworkers thought she was a cold and uncaring person, but that just wasn't the case.
If you want to change attitudes, start with a change in behavior. William Glasser.
There are many alternate names for corporate behavior: company culture, organizational behavior, but all basically mean the same: the collective actions and values of a company. Corporate behavior has many benefits, and those benefits are contingent upon what your company values are. Some benefits could be reduced costs for supplies, employee engagement and motivation, or reduced absenteeism. Let's explore some of the areas you can use to define your company values. Employee safety is a huge issue in businesses and always has been. Thanks to businesses making safety a priority and organizations like OSHA, the number of on-the-job accidents and deaths has been reduced significantly. According to OSHA, in 1972, there were 10.9 employee injuries or illnesses per 100 employees. More recently, those numbers have decreased by approximately 7%. Even with that uplifting statistic, OSHA still states there is an average of 12 employee fatalities daily. What kind of safety values should you consider? Fall prevention, keeping areas clutter-free and taking care of spills quickly to reduce the number of falls. Chemical safety, proper use of chemicals used in the company. This can range from acids used in machinery to office cleaning solutions. Electrical injuries, taking away electronics with frayed wires, using appropriate procedures when wiring electronics, and keeping properly maintained equipment. Illness prevention, having employees not at work when they have a possibly contagious illness, using disinfectants, and offering flu shots. Workplace violence prevention, having a zero-tolerance policy on violence and harassment. These are just a few values to consider when developing your corporate behavior. You can cater the values to the needs of your company. It costs a lot of money to run a company. A huge expenditure is supplies and materials for employee use. Supplies are a necessary expense, but a lot of supplies are wasted, broken, or stolen by employees. Having a corporate behavior that values conserving those supplies could save the company thousands of dollars. This doesn't mean that you should make it hard for employees to obtain the materials they need to perform their jobs, but it does mean that you should be monitoring usage and deciding if that usage is excessive or not for that particular department. According to HR.com, on average, each employee wastes over 1,400 sheets of paper per year. That adds up to $84 per employee. How many employees do you have in your company? Engagement is a state in which an employee is content, committed, and involved in their job. To have an engaged employee, they must meet 3 criteria: emotional attachment, understanding, and motivation. Emotional attachment refers to having an emotional connection to one's company, position, and the work they do. Understanding refers to understanding the company's goals and values and how they contribute to achieving those goals. The last criteria, motivation, relates to employees willing to invest effort in bettering their performance. According to a study by the Hay Group, a company can make 2.5x more revenue with engaged employees. Also, the Corporate Leadership Council found that 87% of engaged employees are less likely to leave their positions. An engaged employee works harder and cares about the company they work for. They waste fewer materials and generally have better customer service. Those same employees are usually motivated to develop new skills and further their careers in the company. A happy worker makes a happy company. Having a corporate behavior that promotes safety, recognition, and engagement, to name a few, creates happy employees. When an employee is content in their position, their productivity rises. Here are some ways your employee's performance can improve: better customer service, rise in productivity, more positive work atmosphere, fewer wasted resources and supplies, less absenteeism, better teamwork, better communication with coworkers. Now let's look at a practical illustration. Deborah has been working as a custodian for the past 2 years. She started out somewhat excited about her job. She's always liked cleaning and organizing things. In the past year, she has really hated going into work. She's absent from work at least once a month, if not more. When she does come in, she does the bare minimum and usually has a poor attitude. She feels stressed out and a little hopeless when she is there. Deborah notices the change in herself, but doesn't understand what has caused the change in her demeanor. She also notices that a lot of her coworkers have the same demeanor, and since she has started, she has seen a lot of employee turnover. Many of the employees feel like their company doesn't care about them. There's a lot of demand for large amounts of work being done very quickly, and little appreciation for those who go above and beyond the standard. She feels like she needs to find some other job soon.
It is always easier, and usually far more effective, to focus on changing your behavior than on changing the behavior of others. Bob Nelson.
There are an immeasurable number of categories of corporate behavior. The trick is finding out what behavior you need your company to adopt. This could include adopting values like punctuality or safety. A great corporate behavior can make or break a company, so it is important to provide the appropriate support for your employees. We are going to explore together some of the more major categories of corporate behavior. Managerial structure relates to how the management team is put together and what types of employees make it up. Unfortunately, many of us have dealt with an incompetent boss. Nothing squashes employee morale quicker than a poorly trained manager. A supervisor should meet 3 major qualifications. Leadership skills. Understand how to lead a team effectively. Understand the proper way to address employees and how to encourage and motivate them. They should have knowledge on how to give constructive criticism. Departmental knowledge. Knowledge of the processes and function of the department. This means that the manager should know how to perform the job tasks of the employees they supervise. The worst thing in the world is to have a boss that doesn't know how you do your job and wants to critique you. Company knowledge. The manager should be knowledgeable about what product or service the company provides to the public and about what is new with the company. They should know what the company goals and values are and what the future plans are for the company. A value is a standard of a person's behavior. There are 2 types of values, terminal values and instrumental values. A terminal value is a value that a person would like to achieve during their lifetime. Some examples of terminal values are having wisdom, having self-esteem, having inner peace, having a real and meaningful friendship, being content in life. An instrumental value is a behavior used to achieve your terminal value. Some examples of instrumental values are being loving, independent, polite, responsible, clean. What it means, in a nutshell, is that if you want to have great success in business, you have to work hard. The terminal value is having great success in business, and the instrumental value is working hard. Ethics are moral foundations that regulate a person or group of people's behaviors. Some examples of ethical behavior could include honesty, integrity, loyalty, accountability, respectability. Ethics and instrumental values may seem like they are the same, but they are not. An ethic is a moral basis. It is not hinged on accomplishing a value. An ethic is a conviction that a person or a group of people have because they feel like it's the right thing to do. Employee accountability basically means that an employee takes responsibility for their actions. This could refer to positive or negative actions. So how do you promote accountability? It starts with the employees identifying with the company's mission. As a supervisor, it's also important to make sure the employees understand that the company wants them to take ownership of the results of their job. Suppose you were a janitor and one of your job tasks was to remove the trash daily. The company does not want you to take ownership of the act of removing the trash. The company wants you to take ownership of the trash can being empty, thus making the area look clean. Accountability also relates to something that an employee is doing that is inappropriate. An employee who is constantly late for work needs to take accountability for their actions. Workplace incidents cover a broad range of scenarios. An incident is defined by an event or an occurrence. In this context, it is an unfavorable event or occurrence. A workplace incident can be an on-the-job injury, a complaint of harassment, or an act of workplace violence. As an employer, it is your job to do everything you can to keep your employees safe. Adopting behaviors within the company to protect employees will make them feel like you care. Now let's look at a practical illustration. The Better Apple Company is a premier place of employment because of their company values and ethics. They're known in the community for being the most employee-friendly company in the county. They have great bosses who are knowledgeable and clear about what they expect from their employees. They help with multiple community outreach programs and charities, including the Apple A Day charity, which provides fresh fruits to the school district. They recently started a program where they began using organic farming procedures to better the health of their customers and the environment. They also have the best ranking in the state for employee safety.
Behavior is the mirror in which everyone shows their image. Johann Wolfgang von Goethe.
Managerial structure is one of the most important aspects of a company's corporate behavior. If you do not have appropriate, effective, and knowledgeable managers, you don't have happy employees. There is a well-known saying that employees leave managers, not companies. That is a fairly accurate statement. The management is what the employee has the most contact with. A poor manager can be easily spotted by the amount of turnover they have in their department. According to Forbes, 31% of employees quit their jobs solely because of their supervisors. So how can you make the most of your management team? Let's discuss it together. Clearly defining your management team is important. Defining your management team means that you have an outline of the managers by hierarchy. It is also helpful to have their job functions listed, but since some managers handle a lot of different tasks, that may not be possible. An employee does not want to have 17 bosses and not know which one they need to report to. Every new employee orientation should include information on the management. You can give your employees the information in a list or in a chart. Some people feel like it is easier to receive this information in the form of a chart, but you should utilize whichever is easier for the employees to process. Here's an example. O President, Jane Doe. O Vice President, William Doe. O Department Manager, Sally Doe. O Lead Team Manager, Sue Doe. O Team Manager, Richard Doe. Having a qualified management team is very important. We went over this briefly on the overview of managerial structure. When you are a leader, you need to have the respect of your employees. Those employees need to be able to look to you for guidance on their positions. As a supervisor, you should be able to perform the employee's job function forwards and backwards, figuratively speaking. This knowledge is important for guidance and training, but also for evaluating. How can you effectively evaluate your employees if you don't understand the aspects of their job function? Employees want to be able to see where their managers came from. They want to feel like if they do a great job, eventually they too can climb up the company ladder. An environment that does not provide encouragement for employees to strive for the best is detrimental to employee morale. There are thousands of employees who leave their positions each year because they felt like they had no room for professional growth. Having a clearly defined advancement path is one way to help an employee rise to their potential and stay with your company. You can help your employees see that there are ways to rise up the corporate ladder in your company by showing them. Offering professional development courses and tuition reimbursement are just a few ways you can show your employees you want them for the long haul. A grievance is a real or imagined wrong or other cause for complaint or protest, especially unfair treatment. Unfortunately, in any work environment, there are going to be grievances or problems. It is very important for a company to have clearly defined grievance procedures. When these unfortunate incidents happen, an employee needs to know the proper steps to report these grievances. They also need to be able to understand that the company has their best interests at heart and has provided a safe arena for them to report grievances. The grievance procedures should include how to report a grievance and what steps will be followed once a grievance is filed. As a company, you want to provide an environment where employees are free to report problems and not feel like they will be ignored or targeted. Now, let's look at a practical illustration. Becky feels like one of her bosses wants to fire her. Every day she comes into the office, he gives her harsh comments about her and her work. This is worrisome for her because she really likes her job, but doesn't like the stress her boss creates. She has 3 different bosses, and the other 2 seem to like her work. Boss #3, who has the issue with Becky, is the only one of her bosses who has no experience in her particular position. She would like to go to someone to speak to them about her boss's behavior, but she doesn't know who to go to. Her company manual has no processes in it regarding reporting grievances. After a few months of turmoil, she decides to quit her job and find work elsewhere.
Anything that changes your values changes your behavior. George A. Sheehan.
There are many ways in which a company can outline its ethics or values. Being involved in a company that has a great corporate behavior is very satisfying for an employee. A well-rounded company should be able to see outside the scope of just their company. Having some values that are based on philanthropy or environmental causes boosts employee morale and company image. Everyone wants to buy from and work for a company that makes the world a better place to live in. When you have a company, you have the potential to create a lot of waste. There is a huge stigma attached to large companies when it comes to the environment. In the popular cartoon, The Simpsons, it shows the power plant continually putting its runoff into the lake, mutating all of the wildlife. Although The Simpsons is a fictional show, and this may be an exaggeration, it's not far from the truth for some companies. There are 7 different types of pollution. 1. Air pollution contaminates like smoke or hazardous gases being put in the air. Example, burning coal, paint fumes, and exhaust from cars. 2. Land pollution, contamination of the world's surface due to improper disposal of waste. Examples, littering, illegal dumping, oil spills inland, and using pesticides for farming. 3. Light pollution, the inability to view the stars due to the brightening of the night sky because of improper lighting. Example, street lamps without a hood. 4. Noise pollution, loud noises that disturbs humans, animals, or other wildlife. Examples, noises from automobiles, loud concerts or sporting events, and demolition. 5. Thermal pollution, when human activity increases the temperature. Example, using cold lake water to cool off machinery and then returning the now warmed water to the lake. 6. Visual pollution, man-made visual aids that are visually displeasing. Examples, graffiti on rocks, billboards, junkyards, and litter. 7. Water pollution, contamination of lakes, oceans, or any other body of water. Example, illegal chemical dumping, oil spills on a body of water, and raw sewage. Large companies have the ability to create fantastic amounts of merchandise and waste. Water and chemical runoff from machines, smoke from processing, and even the waste of paper from an office environment can send environmentalists running for the hills. According to livescience.com, 46% of America's lakes are too polluted for fishing, swimming, or aquatic life. As a company, it should be a core value to preserve the environment around you as much as possible. Making your company more environmentally sound is not easy, but it is important. Not only will you help the environment, but you will help your company's reputation, thus creating a larger customer base. Steps to making your company more environmentally friendly could be as easy as recycling discarded paper, or extravagant as designing new processing machines to reduce or eliminate smoke. People love the feeling they get when they are doing something good. Working for a company that does something good for their community gives employees that same feeling. There are numerous ways you can help support charities and community outreach. Here are just a few ideas on how to have your company help your community. Have employees volunteer to clean a park or cook for a shelter. Take up a collection for local charities. Sell products and give part of the proceeds to charity. Offer employees the option of payroll deducting donations for the charity of their choice. Host events to help the community, like healthy cooking, diabetes awareness, and safe driving. Integrity is a trait we look for in our friends, but is equally important in our businesses. So, what is integrity? In a nutshell, it means being trustworthy, honest, and having high moral character. A company with integrity does what they say they are going to do. They own up to mistakes and work at fixing them. It seems like a simple concept, but it takes a lot of work to have integrity. It is easy to say you will reduce your carbon footprint by 25%, but harder to complete that goal. Customers want to know they are doing business with a company they can trust. If they feel like the company doesn't have the integrity to deliver what the product promises, they won't buy it. When we think of diversity, we think of different races of people within a company. Yes, it is important to have different races of people within a company, but that is not the only definition of diversity. Diversity is having different groups of people, which could include different races, gender, sexual orientation, personality types, educational backgrounds, and experience. So, what are the benefits of having a diverse business? Increases ability to cater to markets the company was otherwise unable to reach. Increases creativity. Gives the company a greater pool of applicants, giving more qualified employees. Creates a positive company reputation. Decreases turnover. Now let's look at a practical illustration. Charles has a lawn and maintenance company that he has managed for the past 3 years. He has noticed that his customer base has dwindled down to only a few customers, but doesn't understand why. He had a customer recently discontinue their services that he had done work for since he started the company. he finally resolved to ask the customer why they wanted to stop receiving lawn care from his company. His customer told him that they had a few issues with the company. Apparently, he had gotten a reputation for being discriminate because he wouldn't hire a female gardener last year. Charles had never been comfortable with having a female worker because of the strenuous job conditions. He always felt like a female wouldn't be able to keep up with the other crew. The customer also said that they were uncomfortable with the chemicals he used in his services. The company then switched to offer natural pesticides and herbicides. Charles thanked the customer for the candid feedback and told them he would try his best to do better.
Always imitate the behavior of the winners when you lose. George Meredith.
We, as consumers, hold companies responsible for their actions, so why wouldn't we do the same for our employees? Employee accountability helps the employee take ownership of increasing productivity and decreasing waste. Having accountable employees also helps increase morale and customer satisfaction. The most important aspect is to make sure you are making the employees accountable in a fair manner. If your child failed his homework assignment, would you disown them? Hopefully not. You would tell them to do better next time and maybe come up with some ways to help. As a company, you can do the same things for your employees. It's easy to think that attitude affects only the employee, but it actually affects the whole company. A poor attitude decreases an employee's productivity and customer service. Their attitude affects other employees, decreasing morale and productivity. The poor attitude of an employee makes them less courteous to customers, therefore decreasing customer satisfaction and sale of goods and services. A leader with a poor attitude can send that negativity to their employees, creating a snowball effect. It is important for an employee to come in with a positive attitude, or your company will not be able to reap the full benefit of its employees. It's not only the employee's job to keep their attitude positive. The company can assist by offering informational courses on stress management and maintaining a work environment that is low stress. By working with your employees, you can create a positive environment that will promote productivity and superb customer service. Everyone gets sick. Sometimes when employees call in, it's because they are sick of work, not actually physically ill. Attendance is a huge issue for companies in the US, costing thousands of dollars per employee per year. When an employee is absent, morale within the department may decrease due to the stress of having to support the workload of the absent employee. Because of the loss of morale, productivity also decreases. Expenses for the company increase because they are expending the same amount of funds to produce the product or service and getting less productivity. If the company has to replace the employee while they are absent, that is even more profit being eaten up. This is not to say you should tell your employees they can't ever be absent. Keeping an employee accountable for their absenteeism is a way for you to control excessive absences. You can hold them accountable by setting a reasonable number of days an employee can be absent per year. There can be exceptions made for severe illnesses if a doctor's note is provided. As the old saying goes, honesty is the best policy. Honesty is important in any business. You, as a company, want to be honest about the product or service you are producing. You want your employees to be honest with customers and with you. If you don't create an environment where honesty is important, you run the risk of having to pay the price for it. Workplace honesty doesn't just pertain to being honest when something has gone wrong, like an accident. Here are some other examples of dishonesty. Embezzlement, or employees taking money from the company. Time theft, employees not being honest about when or how long they work, leaving early without documenting, long lunches, coming in late. Excessive absenteeism, spending too much time on personal tasks instead of working. So how do you create an atmosphere where honesty is important? First, you want to lead by example. If you hold yourself to the highest standard, your employees will follow suit. Secondly, you want to create an environment where employees feel safe to communicate with you. Employees will be honest if they feel like they can talk to their management team without fear or having to become defensive. The third step is letting your staff know it's important to you that mistakes are acknowledged as soon as possible. Employees can make mistakes sometimes, and letting them know they can tell you without retribution encourages them to do so. Lastly, you will want to reward those employees who are following the policies and showing that they are honest consistently. In any company, there should be policies in place regarding substance abuse and workplace violence. Substance abuse is excessively using or becoming addicted to a substance that could include drugs and/or alcohol. According to the National Council on Alcoholism and Drug Dependence, NCADD, drug abuse costs employers $81 billion annually. Substance abuse can stem from various physical and psychological problems. Sometimes an employee just needs some help getting over the hurdle that is addiction. As an employer, you should implement policies about substance abuse and possibly offer some options for employees to seek treatment for these addictions. So, how does substance abuse affect the company employee? Substance abuse could result in inconsistent quality of work, inhibited focus or concentration, decreased productivity, stealing, decreased morale, increased careless mistakes or accidents, unaccounted for absenteeism or periods where employee is missing from their position during the workday, taking unnecessary risks, confrontations or violent behavior, excessive tardiness, leaving early and long lunches, inability to take ownership of their own mistakes, complains constantly or has a negative attitude. Workplace violence is another huge issue. The Department of Labor defines it as any act or threat of physical violence, harassment, intimidation, or other threatening disruptive behavior that occurs at the worksite. It can range anywhere from threats or verbal abuse up to physical assault or homicide. Workplace violence can involve coworkers, consumers, and visitors. There are over 2 million people who report being a victim of workplace violence each year. According to OSHA, a percentage of fatal work injuries were related to workplace violence. So how can you help protect your employees from workplace violence? Create a zero-tolerance policy for violence. And ask employees what they have concerns about when it comes to their safety. Have your security team or an outsourced security team complete a risk assessment. Make sure building and parking lots are well lit. Add cameras and secured entrances, like keys or pass cards. Have a way for people to report incidents, concerns, or suspicious behavior anonymously. Perform background checks on employees annually. Now let's look at a practical illustration. Paula has been working at her company for almost 15 years. She loves her job and has a lot of work friends. She had planned on staying with the company until her retirement in the next 10 years, but has recently put in her resignation. A few months ago, she started having problems with a fellow coworker. She had known Steve for years, but his demeanor had changed recently. She had asked him about an error she found on one of his reports, and he replied by attacking her verbally. Paula apologized for upsetting him and wrote it off as a one-time issue. Steve seemed to still be upset about the issue and continually made rude comments towards Paula. She decided to talk to her supervisor about the problem she had been having with Steve. The supervisor listened, but from what Paula could tell, no action was ever taken. She finally decided it was not a safe environment to work in anymore and had to tender her resignation.
Certainly, if you look at human behavior around the world, you have to admit that we can be very aggressive. Jane Goodall.
Workplace incidents is a term for a wide range of topics. We will be addressing a few of those topics in this module. Employees have a right to go to a work environment that they feel safe in. Making sure that they feel safe is your job as the employer. There are many ways to instill the sense of safety in your employees. Having policies and procedures in line is a great way to show your employees you care about their safety. Each year, there are thousands of people who are injured or killed on the job. Some of those injuries or deaths are due to poor safety standards. Safety includes prohibiting workplace violence, maintaining the facility and machinery to prevent accidents, and having policies and procedures in place. According to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, an average of 13 people die daily from injury on the job. That is too many people to die each year, especially if it's preventable. Unfortunately, prejudice and discrimination have been a constant battle in our society. Prejudice, the unfounded disdain for a person or group of people based on race, gender, physical appearance, religion, etc. Discrimination, treating people with prejudice based on sex, race, religion, etc. The two look very similar, but the basis is that prejudice is an attitude and discrimination is an action. It's nice to think that we have all evolved and that issues like prejudice and discrimination are no longer relevant, but that sadly is not the case. According to the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, approximately 100,000 complaints are filed regarding prejudice and discrimination annually. Incidents of theft and vandalism occur often in the workplace, ranging from stealing pens to embezzling millions of dollars. According to the Department of Justice, almost 1/3 of employees admit to stealing. Now, factor in those who don't consider small theft, like pens and post-it notes, stealing. There are a few ways you can help reduce the risks of theft in your company. The first would be to anticipate theft. The next is to implement a zero-tolerance policy on theft. Lastly, you will want to have a system in place to monitor the use of supplies, etc. Harassment and bullying are not something you would expect adults to engage in, but unfortunately, many people in the workplace do deal with it. Harassment is an occurrence of disturbing or bothering someone. It can be as simple as name-calling or as extreme as making unwanted sexual suggestions. Harassment can involve verbal assaults or can go as far as physical altercations. According to workplacebullying.org, 30% of employees are bullied at work. Sexual harassment is a hot-button issue and refers to any type of unwanted sexual advances. It can include unwanted physical touching, unwanted comments on a person's appearance, both negative and positive, inappropriate comments including sexual acts, etc. Sexual harassment can be executed by any gender toward any gender, by any level of employee toward any level of employee. Now let's look at a practical illustration. Regina has a real problem. She has been stealing for years from all of her jobs. She started small, a few pens and a few paper clips. It has escalated to digging in people's purses when they are at lunch, and even embezzling from the company's charity fund that she is in charge of. To date, she has stolen thousands of dollars. She can't seem to control herself. The temptation is too great. She has noticed that lately, her boss has taken a greater interest in the charity fund and is worried that they will find out her secret.
A person is a pattern of behavior, of a larger awareness. Deepak Chopra.
Hopefully, by now, you are ready to start designing and implementing your corporate behaviors. It is important for you to set realistic behaviors for your employees to follow. Make sure to keep your employees in the loop and get as much feedback as you possibly can. Developing corporate behavior is a lot of hard work. Creating a planning committee can help you maintain your goals and help the employees become engaged in the process. When choosing your group, you will want to get as many of the departments involved. Remember that the company was built by employees, and having employees in the group will help you see the overall plan. It's important to understand that an employee has to want to change their behavior in order for it to change. You can create very specific guidelines, but if the employee doesn't want to make the change, there won't be any change. Sometimes it's good to see what behaviors you don't want, to determine what behaviors you do want. Being able to identify the types of behaviors the company needs and wants to inspire their employees to adopt is crucial. When it comes to identifying desirable behaviors, there are no definitive guidelines. It's all subjective to the needs of your employees and company. It's very important, however, to be very clear when defining these desired behaviors. You want to clearly outline the behaviors you do want. Being specific is helpful. The goal is to help alleviate chaos, not create it. When you implement your corporate behavior policies, there will be a period where the employees who don't want to participate will get weeded out. The goal is for everyone to adhere to the behaviors, but there will always be a few people who don't want to. When you're replacing those employees, it's very important to try to hire people who you feel will adhere to your new corporate behavior. Asking personality-driven questions in the interview is a great way to start finding awesome new employees. Also, telling them a little bit about the company and your corporate behavior is key. See if they agree with the policies or if they don't think they could function in an environment that requires that type of behavior. Training is always important, but it's especially important when implementing new policies that will change corporate behavior. An employee is only as good as the resources they are given, and information is the best resource they could have. Of course, you will want to train the new employees, but current employees will also require training when implementing a new policy. Some training can be informal, but if there are a lot of changes, a more formal training session may be necessary. When you start the training, be sure to have some moments of fun with it. Keep the employees engaged by offering games or other activities. You can train by new employee orientation, by one-on-one training. So, books or pamphlets, informational videos, emails, flyers, group training sessions, staff meetings. Now let's look at a practical illustration. Ronnie owns a tree trimming company. He is very proud of his company and is a hands-on boss and owner. He decided one day when working with his employees that he needed to implement some policies that will change some of the undesirable behaviors his employees were exhibiting. They were talking rudely and loudly around customers. Some of the employees were whistling at young ladies that passed by the job site. He heard rumors that some of the employees were stealing supplies. He did his research and implemented policies he thought the company needed. The employees were outraged by some of the policies. He didn't understand why they were so upset. Finally, an employee that Ronnie had hired when he started his company came to talk to him. He told Ronnie that some of the policies were unfair of him to ask, like not allowing the employees to converse with each other while on the job. Ronnie realized he should have included his employees when planning the policy changes. He hoped it wasn't too late and put together a team to help him iron out what the company needed.
People don't change their behavior unless it makes a difference for them to do so. Sharon Stone.
There are many slogans and seminars dedicated to teamwork. There is a reason that teamwork is such a buzzword. An individual can't make a company great. The company as a whole is built on the employees working as a team. In this module, we will explore the importance of teamwork and how important it is to your corporate behavior. Team building basically means getting your team acquainted with each other to provide a better work atmosphere. Team building is very important when a group of people are working together. There is a natural anxiety that we humans have, in which we fear the unknown. Allowing the employees to build familiarity with each other helps alleviate that anxiety of the unknown. There are a lot of ways to aid in team building. Here are a few examples. Group introductions, play team building games, have functions with food so people can get to know each other, offer sports teams. When you implement team building, you open the door to a wealth of advantages. Team building encourages better communication. When people are more comfortable with their teammates, they feel more open to express themselves. When teammates feel comfortable expressing themselves, they offer better ideas for projects or better constructive criticism. Good communication means that your company is running smoother. Like in most relationships, communication is priority. With proper communication, relationships flourish. Without proper communication, they dissipate. When you implement team building, you're actually improving your employees' communication skills. Those communication skills will be tested during conflict resolution. When conflicts arise, it is easier to address them with someone you have at least some form of a relationship with. It is easy to be upset with someone you don't know and don't talk to. Addressing the issue of conflict resolution helps build the team. Does team building mean that you will never have an employee conflict again? Absolutely not, but it offers the tools needed to resolve those conflicts without incident. When you have a company that functions like a team, you have a company full of loyal people. Teamwork does more than get people to know each other's name. It creates bonds and friendship. Teamwork makes people feel valued and included. These feelings help employees become loyal to the company or their departments. This loyalty leads to happy employees who want to stay in their positions for the long haul. These loyal employees work harder for the company and reduce the costs of having to replace abandoned positions. Now, let's look at a practical illustration. Ellie loves her job. She has had many horrible jobs in the past, but her current position is almost a dream. She works closely with the employees in her department on a daily basis. She feels like they are all part of one big family. She even goes to dinner with her fellow co-workers from time to time. The company encourages her to build relationships with co-workers by offering monthly potluck lunches. She notices that the employees are friendlier and they seem to have fewer arguments, unlike her former company. She is happy she accepted her current position.
If you do not like a certain behavior in others, look within yourself to find the roots of what discomforts you. Bryant H. McGill.
Understanding and developing corporate behavior is a fantastic feat. I am sure at this point you would like nothing more than to relax and bask in the glory of what you have created. Unfortunately, there will be little time for that. You have to evaluate and possibly revise your corporate behavior platform. This world is ever-changing, and so is your company. It's time to make sure what you implemented is working or is still relevant and change what needs to be changed. The first step is to affirm that your company is utilizing ethical behavior. What does that mean? Basically, just check and make sure your company and its employees are still being ethical. If you do your investigation and find out that there are issues in this department, you may want to revise some of your policies. Ethical behavior is very important in a business, not only for the employees, but to the customers also. What are some ways you can check up on ethical behavior? Follow up on employee and customer complaints. Make sure that the company is providing what it promises. Investigating incidents like safety and harassment is the next step to ensuring your corporate behavior program is working. This is the time where it is very important to utilize your human resources team. You need to know why these incidents are happening in order to determine if they can be prevented. If you notice that there are a large number of incidents in a particular department, or because of a recurring theme, it may be an indication that you need to revise some of your policies. The only way you can change things for the better is to know what is going on in the company. After you have reviewed all of the information, you need to evaluate the progress your new behavior program has made. Reviewing progress is important to determine that you are implementing the correct changes. Finding out that 38% of your staff quit their job after implementing the changes in policies may indicate that your policies are too tough. Noticing no change may indicate that you need to make the policies more specific. Share your results with your supervisors. They may have insight into what can be done to further the progress of the company. The last two steps are the most important. You want to get your employees' feedback on the program. They are the ones who have to follow the behavior guidelines. They should be able to express how they feel about them. Employee feedback can be gained in several ways, including, but not limited to, surveys and one-on-one interviews. During this time, you should also be gathering the employees' suggestions for improvements. Remember that Rome wasn't built in a day, and it wasn't built by one person. Input from others is always important. The last step is to revise the plan. There is no point in gathering all of the results and feedback and not change what is not working. You should always be striving to make behavior better. If something isn't working, then a change is necessary. Now let's look at a practical illustration. Kayla has implemented her corporate behavior program, and it seems to be going well. After 6 months, she decides it's time to review the progress. She assumes everything is going well because she hasn't heard any complaints. Kayla expects the results to reflect what a great job she did. She doesn't anticipate needing to change anything. She meets with her team and does her research. She finds that many of her policies are not as effective as she thought. Some of them are vague, and the employees don't seem to understand what they are supposed to be doing. The employees are unhappy because they are more confused now than they ever have been about the behaviors they are to exhibit. Although this workshop is coming to a close, we hope that your journey to understanding developing corporate behavior is just beginning. We wish you the best of luck on the rest of your travels. Most bad behavior comes from insecurity. Deborah Winger. People say I make strange choices, but they're not strange for me. My sickness is that I'm fascinated by human behavior, by what's underneath the surface, by the worlds inside people. Johnny Depp. Human behavior flows from 3 main sources: desire, emotion, and knowledge. Plato. Behavior is the mirror in which everyone shows their image. Goethe.